Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. As you know, my name is Zenzi Sewa, and my guest today is John Lacasse, and he's an author. He was a lecturer, but now he just writes books. And John is here today because he's going to talk about his books, but his spiritual journey and how he came onto that spiritual journey. And he's also had some near-death experiences and spoken to people. So hopefully he'll incorporate that in his talk today. So, John, welcome. And you're in Seattle, Washington, and 8 hours difference. So I'm here in London and it's 4:22 p.m. in the afternoon, and you're in Seattle, Washington, and it's 8:22 in the morning. So thank you very much for that, getting up that early, having your breakfast and being with us today to join us, drinking your coffee or tea, whatever.
Indeed I am, yes.
And here you are. So, John, we're here to listen to you about your journey into your spiritual connection and how you use that connection through your life, how that's affected you, and sharing it with other people. So, with much ado, John Lacasse. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. To get to the point, I guess, in the spiritual side of things, we have to go all the way back to 1961 at the University of Montana, where I was an undergraduate student. But I was lucky enough to be studying under Leslie Fiedler, who became a Guggenheim Fellow and a very famous social science authority and lecturer, and his contemporary, Leslie Fiedler, Harold Tasher. They were professors, and they were doing research in essentially the fourth dimension. And I didn't know what I was up against. I was an undergraduate student. I was young, and I find myself in a witch's cradle. I find myself in water baths. I find myself all sorts being wired up and being asked questions by these two college professors. This is before they were famous. They became very famous later. And so there's about 25 students in this group, but these two guys keep coming back to me all the time. They keep coming back to me and asking me more and more questions. And this went on for weeks. Okay. Finally, Leslie Fiedler comes to me and he said, John, he said, we can't figure you out. He said, and then he said the words, he said, we don't think you're from here. And
what's new?
So, immediately I changed my major to drinking beer and playing pool. So I didn't know what to do with that, and I really didn't do anything with it for a long time, but I never forgot it. And he pointed out some things about how I could control the temperature of my arms and legs separately, and I could do things that they'd never seen before. So anyway, I go through life, and I have a very successful. I flunk out of the University of Montana. I just flunk out. I don't tell my dad that. I hide my grades, and I tell him I'm off to something more important. But they threw me out.
They threw you out.
Well, I flunked out. I got thrown out. I got officially thrown out of 3 more universities. But that was because I kept attacking the faculty. I mean, I was going after the faculty's competence. I was, when I finally went back to school for the second time, I was 59 years old, and I was an old man. And I had several very successful careers that I was doing rather well in. But anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. But so anyway, I go through life, and I have these great careers, and I do very well, and I have airplanes, and I have penthouses, and I have multiple cars, and I have all the things that a wealthy businessman, upper middle class guy should have. And I also had several bottles of VO stashed everywhere because I started to drink. And I was, what else are you going to do with your money when you have too much money? You might as well drink. So I was drinking all the time.
Just experiment.
I don't think I drew a sober breath for years. Anyway, my wife comes to me one day and she says, if you keep this up, you're going to die. You know, you're killing yourself. I mean, she said, I don't care how much money you've got. It's ridiculous. You know, you're gonna kill yourself. Well, that I paid attention to that, and she was right. And so I walked away from everything. I walked
Okay.
away from my careers. I walked away from all the money, the airplanes, the cars, the stuff, and took off for Paris, left for Europe, and started to study. I studied for the next 20 years full time. And I studied essentially theology, philosophy, metaphysics. I got 3 terminal degrees. I'm now a doctor, and I studied in the environment of the most notable theologians of the 13th century.
Okay.
And uh, and I was obviously looking for something. I didn't know what it was. And I didn't have a format to go by. I didn't have any kind of a rule book. I didn't have any, this, if you do this, this will happen. If you do that, this will happen. None of that was in my case. I've never meditated, for example, in my life. I still don't. I never have meditated. I don't do any of the things that one might do to set themselves up for an elevation of some kind. I haven't done that. I just deal with curiosity. As I got more curious and more curious, I began to look for, let's say, tears in the environment, for changes in the process of a natural process of trees, grass, birds, animals, wind, whatever, to see if I could somehow measure. And I wasn't thinking about that in that context. My context wasn't, let me see if I can do this. My context was that it was interesting. And so my rule book really was curiosity. You know, let me think about this and see. You know, I've been asked questions several times in my life about God and about heaven. You know, do you look for, how do you find good? Do you find God or do you find heaven? What do you look like? What is spirituality? And I said, it's none of that stuff. I said, you know, it's a tremendous disservice, in my opinion, to try and quantify a high holy order, because it's not quantifiable. You know, stop trying to define it. Just live into it. It's flow. I studied physics for a long time, and the hallmark of the universe is the yin and yang of balance. It's about balance. It's about positive and negative actions. It's about mass. It's about attraction of mass. It's about space-time, geometry, superposition, all that stuff. Yeah.
Vibrations, yes.
Vibrations. Everything vibrates. There's nothing that isn't vibrating.
That's right.
Everything moves. Nothing.
Everything moves. Color, table, chairs, everything.
Everything.
Wind.
Yeah. That it looks to me like you've got a marble wall behind you. That looks like it's rocks. Is that what that is? It's hard. Yeah, I mean, that's vibrating. You know, it's buzzing right behind you.
Yeah. And this is
we got that.
This is what people, I find, don't realize, is that everything vibrates, color vibrates, the chair, the table, the door, everything's a vibration, just vibrating at different frequencies that make it solid, or oxygen that makes it like air. It's fascinating.
That's right. It's very fascinating. And now we've come to the point where, with photon technology, research, we know that we were giving off light as well. And they're finding out in research with mice, especially, that the light, and I forget what they call the frequency, but it's a special frequency, goes away at the time of death. So photons play a big role. Of course, they are the speed of light anyway, which we can't seem to get around. I've made claims that we could best the speed of light, but I don't think anybody knows how to do that. I certainly don't. So, but we're you and I are in concert on that, on vibration for sure.
Yes.
And that's what, you know, makes the world go around, literally. So I had a person say the other day, she said, she was talking about some of the things I've written, and she said, if you want to know what John Lacasse thinks, she said, don't look in your sanctuary, go outside, go somewhere else, because this is not a sanctuary guy. This is the guy that's in the universe.
Looking at nature and everything around us
That's right.
to make sense of everything. Yes.
That's right. That's right. So I thought that was a high compliment, frankly. And so anyway, in this process of walking away from power and money and sort of backing into an ethereal life of science. Some call it pseudoscience, but science. I think hard science has done us a disservice because they keep trying to prove things mathematically. And even though it's fun to watch how things work mathematically, I think that's just a part of the answer. I don't think that's the whole answer. I don't think that, I mean, it's the same thing with time. I mean, time is very interesting, but it's a personal construct. If you call Andromeda and ask Andromeda what time it is, you won't get an answer. You can't work outside the interstellar and ask people what time it is or about the work of time or anything else. These are all our own constructs.
Yes.
And I that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I interviewed Evan Alexander after he wrote his book, Proof of Heaven. And he was talking about how he got encephalitis and how he went off to heaven for a week and then came back. And he was a neurosurgeon and faculty member at Harvard at the time. And I have my own transcript at Harvard. And so he's convinced this is true. Well, and he gets fired at Harvard. They're not going to let him around. I mean, this guy's a tenured professor. You can't talk about going to see God and expect to be on the faculty at Harvard. At least not then.
Okay.
Anyway, I interviewed him for a long time. We had a great time, and he's on the back of some of my books as well. He's written about it. But I told him, I said, so he gets let out of Harvard, and I interview him. And I tell him,
he gets let out of Harvard.
I tell him, I say, in the interview, I said, you know what I think he did? I think he went to see Pythagoras. I said, well, you were going up into the interstellar during your encephalitis attack. I think you met Pythagoras. I think you were in harmony. I think it was all about harmony. Well, the next thing I know, he starts a company called Sacred Acoustics. So now he's in the humming and drumming business. So I think he believed what I told him. At least I think he did. I'm not going to take credit for it, but anyway, I wish him luck in his new business. And I did that with a couple of other people as I was curious about what was happening to me. I wanted to know what was happening to other people. And I ran up against this fellow, a friend of mine who I'd known for a long time, who turned out to be the head of Jones Act operations for ConocoPhillips, which is a major oil company. A very conservative, across the board organization. And he says to me, because he knows I'm writing about it in a book called Fight for the Quantum, and he said, I've never told this to anybody before. But he said, I want to tell you. I said, okay. And he tells me about when his brother, he had a younger brother who, on the night of his high school graduation, got electrocuted by crawling up a post and getting himself electrocuted, and he died on his graduation night. And they were very close, and it was very traumatic for the family, obviously. So, these guys were so close, they wore the same color shirts, same clothes, and they were just like they flew like starlings. And so that night, my friend goes to sleep. He has a dream, and in the dream, his brother comes to him in the dream, and his brother is wearing a kind of a greenish shirt that's glowing, and his brother is telling him that he's okay and everything's going to be all right. And the brother's in an environment that my friend doesn't recognize. He recognizes the color. He recognizes, but that's all. And the rest of it are walls and things he doesn't know.
Okay.
But his brother's telling him it's okay. So now years and years go by. And the ConocoPhillips guys decides that he wants to change his major in college, go off and do something else, and he joins the California Maritime Academy as a cadet. He's accepted in the Cal Maritime. During the orientation, the new cadets are taken out to their cruise ship, which is called the Golden Bear. When he walks aboard the bridge of the Golden Bear, it's precisely the place where his brother came to him the night of his death. It's exactly the same.
And the night he saw his brother, that scenery was the same where they at this Golden Bear.
Identical. And this was years later. Okay. So, and when he's telling me this, he's a key executive for a major oil company. So he has no reason to, there's nothing in it for him to tell me this story, other than he needed to tell it to somebody.
Yeah. Yes.
So the next time I met a woman who was a key executive for the Sierra Club, and she was escorting a senator down the Snake River because the Sierra Club didn't want the Bureau of whatever it was, to build a dam on the Snake River. And so they were campaigning, they were lobbying against that with the Senate. They're on rubber rafts going down the Snake River. They get in trouble, the raft tips over, she gets trapped into the raft, and she's drowning. Yeah. And all this stuff falls out of the raft, and they're going down, and she's to the point where she's convinced she's going to die.
Okay.
And she's giving it up at this point. She's deciding to let it go because it's too hard for her, and it's becoming easier for her to just let go and drift away.
Yeah.
At that point, according to her story, and I believe her yet to be born daughter comes to her and asks her not to die, asks her to fight on, to stop, because she wants to be born and she wants her daughter to be born. And if the mother dies, that's going to stop that process in that line.
Okay. So
the mother takes this advice, fights on, and gets through it, and doesn't die. And she has a conversation with people, but she doesn't say much about it. And years go by.
Yeah.
She's bothered by this for a long time, and she ends up working at the McLean Psychiatric Hospital as a staffer, trying to get a handle on what's going on. And this goes on for years. She finally gets married. She has a daughter. And then what do you know? It's the daughter that she saw in the Snake River.
Oh my God.
And the daughter has a baby, just like it was predicted. And off they go. She wrote a major article for me in one of my, in Fight for the Quantum, I think, or After Your Children Die. And it was just, it's just one of those things. I mean, you can't, when you have credible people, because not everybody's credible, and that's unfortunate, but when you have credible people who tell you the truth about, and they're very circumspect about what they want us to talk about these things that have happened to them.
Yes.
And then they do, and they speak with such precision. And I've noticed there was a woman named Kimberly Clark, who was probably the most famous NDE interview of all time. This is the famous blue shoe story.
Okay.
Where Kimberly was a staffer at Harborview Medical Center, which is in Seattle, and she was a social worker who was supposed to work with people to see what kind of services they could provide and if they had any money and whatever, because they were indigent. So she's got this person who is essentially dying. She's coming in and out of lucidity, and she's alive one minute, maybe dead the next. But she's there with her. And so she effectively dies in her presence, and then she recovers and she comes back. So all of her vital signs stop, and then she comes back. And she's talking to Kimberly about this experience. and
Okay.
she's describing the outside of the building to Kimberly Clark.
Yeah.
And it's a very big building.
Yeah.
And so Kimberly is, like, okay, you're hallucinating, whatever it is. She's not saying this, but she's thinking, I'm going to give you a lot of style points for maybe being wrong because you were half dead anyway, whatever. And so the conversation goes on, and the woman tells Kimberly, she said, there's a blue shoe on the windowsill. I'm at the 6th floor, I think. A blue shoe, like a tennis shoe.
Yeah.
And she said, I just saw it. So immediately, so Clark says, again thinking, anyway, they get the staff together. They go up there, and sure as shooting, there's a blue shoe on that windowsill, on the floor, on the outside of the building where this woman just was. And she never left the table, but she was out there and she came back.
Yes. Yes.
It's known as,
It's wonderful. Near-death experiences. Yes.
and that's known as the blue shoe, and it's been legendary within the NDE people for a long time. The thing I've noticed is that their stories never change. Once a person's had a near-death experience, they never come off the story because it's so embedded in their psyche. It's so credible. It's so real to them that they have no reason to try and modify it or to change it.
No.
That's the story, and I'm sticking to it, and I don't care what you think. And I've never seen a group of people with more resolve in my life. They don't care about anything, other than what they've got to say. That's it.
And have you ever had near-death experience yourself?
Well, I don't think so. I've had a almost a studied experience into an outside dimension. I think I've been in the 4th dimension, where I could find a tesseract, for example. But I did that over a long period of time, sort of left-handedly trying to get there. But I've never been in an accident, a death, or anything like that, where I went away and came back. I've never elevated above the top of myself in an operating room and then come back and told the surgeon that he had to comb his hair or whatever it was. I've never done that. But I think that I'm aware of people that have.
Yeah.
My experiences have been more purposeful, I think, where as a very alive person, and but without meditation, but just simply with concentration and curiosity, I've been able to elevate to other areas, and I've done that through a great deal of singleness of purpose, where I was interested in what that really meant. I was interested in physics and theology and metaphysics and astrophysics, and I've studied all those people.
Yes.
And I have talked to them, and I've asked them what they think. And usually they're atheists. The people that are in that realm tend to somehow not believe in God. And then they get older. It's fun to watch them get old and how they start to believe in God. As the older they get, the better God looks, because they can't deny him someplace else. And so finally they say, well, probably he does exist.
Have you yourself, and I think you did mention this earlier, that you've gone to the 4th dimension, you've traveled to other dimensions. How has it been when you've traveled there?
Well, I didn't just go alone. I took some people. I went with some people.
Okay.
So the in this, I told you earlier about the Leslie Fiedler experience and how how I wasn't from here. He told me, and that in today's vernacular that would make me a starseed. But no one had ever heard of starseed. 1961. That didn't make any sense. But as I went more and more to school and studied more and more and more, my curiosity got higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
And then I was on a social media platform called Wisdom, where I was the host.
Yeah.
And I was talking about something, and I get a call from a woman And she says, there's something about your voice. There's something about you now. I had a better voice then than I do now. And she said, there's something about your voice, the frequency. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like I have to talk to you. That happened to me 3 times while I was on Wisdom by 3 different women.
Okay.
They said, there's something about your voice. I don't know what it is. So that brought my memory back to 1961 and Leslie Fiedler. You know, he thought I was different. They think I'm different. What is different about this? So, you know, what do I do with that? What do I do with you're different? And so I developed a relationship with these people, and we began to share circumstances like you and I are doing right now.
Yeah.
And it evolved more and more. And I found out that about their experiences, about mine. I find out that we share a lot of what I call it superposition. It's where electrons actually match one another. There's no data transfer, but they match each other in what they call spin.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I'm somehow connected to these people, or they're connected to me, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And we were given this opportunity to do something about this because they have come out and talked about it. And so I should take advantage of this somehow. I should look into it further. So that's how it evolved. And the evolution then became endless cataloging of coincidence between it. How many coincidences did happen between us? How many of us saw the same bug at the same time, saw the same circumstance, saw the same butterfly? You know, would be walking in the desert and a monarch would fly by and a monarch would be over here, or a crow and a crow, or whatever. And we started to work on these coincidental circumstances between all of us to see if there was any kind of a connection.
Okay.
And that was sort of a pseudoscience idea, but these are very smart people. So I you know, there was no point in questioning it. It was legitimate, and we weren't trying to get funding or a grant or anything else. We were just, all of us were self-contained, and this is very interesting stuff. Well, it turned out that there were a lot of coincidences that really and truly were only explainable by some form of superposition, by some form of connection within the flow of the universe.
Okay.
And at that point, it evolved into a methodology that really isn't written or discussed, but how to treat the universe, how to treat your relationship with flow, with the balance of existence. And what our purpose is here, our purpose is not to modify or change in this relationship that we have researched. Our position is not to try and modify what's already there. Our position is to try and find the tears in that and enjoy the flow. I call it flow.
Yeah.
But don't fight it, go with it. Just say yes.
So what you're saying is that, and I find this very interesting, and I can understand it thoroughly, is that we're here, and I've said we're here to grow spiritually. By that I mean is to understand who we are, which is energy, and how we flow within the energy we are in, so that we can have the existence we're meant to have, which is an existence of harmony, of peace, and enjoy and flow with it. When you go against that flow, when you go against that harmony, it's like a grating, then you get that negative kind of thing. But we're here to balance and be within and understand and grow with it, and understand how we not manipulate it, but how we can work with it to create that which we want to create. Am I correct?
Precisely correct. Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Gross. Because I think to people, we're the spiritual beings with a physical body having a human experience. We are energy. Spirit is energy. And it's how to not manipulate. I used to say manipulate. It's not manipulate. It's how to use that energy, flow with that energy, be at one with that energy, so that we can be of peace and harmony and joy as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, this is your tuner right here.
Yeah,
And you know, you want to dial that up and
yeah.
try and tweak it so that it's you're tuned in
Mm.
to the environment. And
Yes,
that includes bugs and trees and cats and you
yeah,
know, and brick walls and everything else.
yes.
The idea is to be tuned into where we live and go with the flow.
No,
Go with
yes,
the flow
yes,
and relax into the environment. Do
yes,
not try and be what you're not. Don't
yes.
try and change stuff because you know, I mean, in terms of trillions of galaxies, you're not going to get very far doing that. You
No,
know?
no, definitely not. It is already there. You are a part of it. You're not there to change it. It's to
That's right.
understand it and work with it.
That's right. That's right.
Mm.
So, and I think that's it. I think that is a capture of the large picture. I don't, uh, I'm a skeptic I guess, of theocracy, of too much regimentation in dogma. I'm not a dogma guy. I understand it, and I mean, I studied for a long time. My mother thought I was going to be a priest. I think she was very unhappy when I didn't become a priest, but it didn't bother me any.
Oh, yeah.
I was trained by the Jesuits for 17 years. I mean, I got a good religious education, but I don't buy into the dogma. No. Okay, go ahead.
If you had to become a priest, what religion would it have been?
I would have been a Jesuit, probably a Catholic priest. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I was. I mean, I was already studying under them. I went to Loyola, and I was studying under the Jesuits, and they're a very, very strong, well-educated teaching order, and I kind of gravitated toward that. But I mean, it's just too restrictive. You
yes.
know, I just didn't want to get that kind of restriction.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, a pool hall and a bottle of beer look really pretty good.
That's why you got thrown out of all those.
Yeah, I was when I was a graduate student, and I checked into George Washington University, which is a big university in Washington D.C. And I had just been thrown out of the University of Maryland for having a smackdown with a faculty member, and so the recruiter at George Washington says, at that time it was Mr. Lacasse. He said, "Mr. Lacasse, do you understand who has the power here?" And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Well, you better understand because your record." She said, "I've never seen a record where you have a high GPA and you're being tossed out of schools. Most people get thrown out of school because they're flunking out." He said, "You're coming to me with almost a 4-point GPA just from school." So he said, "You've got a power problem. There's something wrong with how you're operating." So he said, "Get it right." So,
Can you explain to people what a GPA is?
well, a GPA is what your grade point average is.
Right.
And so you have, you know, A, B, C, D, E, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I was practically all A's because I was doing the job and doing a great job. So I'm like a 3.93 GPA, you know, practically a 4. And he said, how do you get thrown out of school with a 4 GPA? He said, "That's crazy." So, he
You
said,
had so many questions to ask. You were inquisitive, and you weren't accepting everything that was given to you. That's why.
no, not at all. They put me, they, you know, I'm supposed to be a 20-year-old graduate student. They assigned me to a middle school to go be an intern, to make my internship for my education administration degree. Well, I show up and I got white hair, you know, and I'm their graduate student. I'm supposed to be 20 with dark hair. No, I'm 60 with white hair. And so I walk in and I meet the faculty and I talk to the principal, and they don't know what to do with me. Like, you know, what do we do with this guy? And I said, "Well, I have a very good business background." I said, "How about I just look over your stuff and I'll look at your books and see how you're doing and see what I can do." So I go in and I start to audit their books. Well, they're not happy about that. Then I come out and I say, "You know, I think you guys are cooking the books." I said, "You know, you're putting too much money from special ed and you're taking money away from the general classroom." I said, "If I was a parent of the general classroom, I'd be mad." I said, you guys are manipulating budget here, and that's not fair. So I'm all of a sudden becoming the CEO of this middle school, telling them that they got to modify the budget. They called the dean of George Washington University School of Education and said, this guy Lacasse, yeah, get rid of him. He's dangerous.
He knows too much. He's aware of too much. Well, why wouldn't you be? I mean, you've got into the university. You're not 20, you're 60. You've done so much in your life. You've had businesses. You've become a very wealthy man. You've had planes, different things going on. You've walked away from it to go now and learn physics and all these different things. So you've got a wealth of knowledge and understanding, totally different from your normal and average degree holder. So yes, they came up to something far greater than that we were expecting.
Well, they weren't ready for it, and I didn't handle it very well either, because I probably shouldn't have said, you guys are cooking the books, and I think you guys are cooking.
No,
I could have said, I could have said, I could have been a little more circumspect about that, but
the truth is the truth. What do you expect? John, so here you are. You've gone through so much in your life. You've got into the dimensions. You've spoken to people who've had NDEs, and you studied the very things that you know, looking at the universe and what it's all about. And it has brought you today where you are now an author of so many books, writing about these subjects.
yeah.
So what are the names of your books that if people wanted to read more and understand? Because it's it's not about us just being human, just being here, la la la. It's about understanding who we are, how we function, and how we can function to be happy in this world, and understanding what this world and our relationship with this world is all about. And this is what your books are about. So tell us a bit more about your books that you've written.
Yeah. Well, my dissertation became a book right away, which is on transcendental teaching styles. But after that, when I met these women that I talked about earlier, I started a series, a 3-book series. The first one is called Deals, Danger, Destiny, and that's kind of a memoir that morphs into my fourth dimension stuff. The next book, and it's published. The whole 3 series is published as a memoir. The next book is called Floppy Feathers, and Floppy Feathers is another book that has to do with my engagement with the High Holy Order, how we directly engaged with the fourth dimension and navigated through it. And then the fourth or the third book is called The Hunters, and that's how the 3 women I talked about earlier to myself initiated a trip, essentially, into the fourth dimension to find God. And we were looking for whatever that might happen to be. And that book will be published probably in the next month by Sunbury Press. So there's 2 books that are on the street right now.
Right. Let me just go back to Floppy Feathers, where you said you were engaged with the higher order in the fourth dimension. What do you mean by you engaged with the higher order?
It was pretty common day-to-day stuff. I learned that I could be opaque, that I could walk through people. I learned that Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War, was in this frame, and I learned that winged angels with wings, essentially is a confabulated invention of man, and that the High Holy Order was trying to accommodate that, and have been doing it for millennia. One of the methods involved is to pull what is a a plug. Essentially, they use eagle wings, and they make a plug, and the plug goes in your shoulders up here,
Yeah.
and then it grows out, and it's essentially you become the gestation area for a eagle wing, and that's how we get the wings. They didn't want the wings in the first place, but they came around. The floppy feathers was that my wings came out incorrectly, or not in unison, and one wing flopped out first and flipped me over. And there's a whole series on the book about how I'm flopping around with his off-balance set of wings. One of the women that I was with became was walking in the Arizona desert. I needed her for a project. I met a monarch butterfly that I could communicate with, and I knew that if I acted as a monarch butterfly and could get close enough to her in the desert, that she would recognize who I was and I'd get her attention, and that happened. And the relationship with all the butterflies in the desert of Arizona was another part of the story. All of this coming to a conclusion where these coincidences were coming to the point where we could recognize parts of nature, whether it be ravens or crows or cats or anything. We would look for an anomaly in the natural process of what we see in the third dimension. We would look for a way to see that operate in another dimension. And it was careful observation all the time.
Okay.
And it just kept happening. And because there was 4 of us doing it, it didn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It became a legitimate science project, to where I was lucky to have 3 other people that were supporting this. And
supporting,
so,
yeah, and looking to do the same experiment to understand.
And I think the biggest, the conservative ratification of everything I've said is that the publishing community, I'm not an indie publisher. I have a real publisher. I have a real publicist. I have staff. I have all that stuff that real publishers have. And they made a conscious decision to publish all 3 books as memoirs, not as science fiction. They said, because I could put too much actuality in the context. We were here. This is what we talked to. I talked to Emiroff. We were at the Vatican Library. We were in Egypt. We were all over the place. And they said, this is not a story. This is a memoir.
No, it's not a story of fiction. It's a story of truth, of your life, of your experiments, what you've experienced, what you've gone out to look and to search for, to search that knowledge. So no way can that be science fiction.
Yeah, no,
it's truth. It's truth as you have gone and experienced it.
That's correct.
John, before we wind up, and it's been a very interesting indeed about the dimensions and so, what golden nugget would you like to leave? No, before I say that one, how do people? You've mentioned your books, but if people wanted to contact you, do you work with people one-to-one, or you're just an author now at the present time?
Well, I'm happy to communicate with people, but I don't work with anybody other than just do like talk with them. I'm fine. I have a website and I have an email address, which are direct to me, which is fine. My website is my name, John Lacasse, at johnlacasse.com. Actually, it's johnlacasse.com.
Right.
That's a site. And then my email address is my name again, John Lacasse at msn.com.
MSN.
Yeah. So those are direct to my computer. They come straight in. And so when I'm drinking coffee, we can, happy to exchange emails or whatever. And you can also buy the books on that website. That'll take you to someplace else. And that has all my credentials, and it has some more stories about me, some stuff that people have written. And it's very flattering, of course. If it's not flattering, I throw it away.
It has to be flattering. It can't be nothing negative. There's nothing. Yeah, we know you got thrown out of university, but it's only because you didn't stick to the norm, and which we should, and you question everything of which we're supposed to do, and that's what the Creator makes us to do, to think for ourselves and not be fed dogma and lies all the time to make us into what we are not. John, what would you like to say to our audience? What golden nugget can you live with our audience to help them looking and going through this life, to help them to look at life in a way that will be of advantageous to them?
Well, in my case, and I guess that's it'd be my thing, what I would do. I think the most important thing is not to ever become so invested in something that you can't walk away from it. Be curious and be a consumer of everything you can get your hands on. Do that, but don't become invested. Don't become invested in some one thing that you can't leave it alone.
Yeah,
because then that becomes an addiction.
Yeah,
and you can't be addicted. You have to be a curious observer. But don't get down somebody's rat hole and not be able to get out.
Okay.
So that's just be yourself. Make sure you can bootstrap yourself out of any situation, no matter what. So.
John, thank you very much indeed. We've been here for nearly an hour, so it's gone 9 o'clock in the morning. So you're fully awake, and we all are.
Thank you.
Sorry for getting you up so early. It's been so wonderful. Thank you so much. And to all my viewers today, thank you so much for joining us. Until the next time, John Lacasse. Bye-bye to everyone. Bye-bye.